to the show. This is The Force Always. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit, and this is the wake up call for The Force Always. Let's get on with the show, with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. So, making news. Can you believe it? Star Wars own Rose Byrne, Australian. She starred in Attack of the Clones, which is episode 2. She has won a Golden Globe at the 2026 Golden Globes, believe it or not. And the actual particular win was, let me just look this up, was for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Apparently it's a comedy. Not a musical, but she won it for the best musical or comedy film for her role. Rose Byrne. The second I see this particular actress's face, I know and remember distinctively she was in Attack of the Clones. She was in a very small talking scene as the handmaiden for Padme, just before Anakin and Padme go off on their sort of romantic adventure, which may have been the time of conception of the Skywalker family. I don't know. Sort of, it says it and doesn't say it, the way Star Wars is in that particular episode. Yeah, so she is very similar looking face to Padme, the character Padme. Just her name escapes me as every time names escape me. So she's in Attack of the Clones. In fact, there's a number of Australians in Attack of the Clones because the prequels, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, which is Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, were majority filmed in Australia, Sydney, matter of fact. Of recent sort of things that Rose Byrne has been doing, probably a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes, but she's featured on a real estate style of ad here in Australia, which sort of, the second I saw her on that, I knew who she was, from Star Wars, that is. And so she's been sort of doing a little bit of comedy, getting her comedy chops up on this particular ad, which is sort of a very light comedy type of ad for some sort of real estate thing. But anyway, Rose Byrne from Australia, who is a Star Wars legend, has won for her role in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Great. 2026. So that is making news, big, big news for her and for Australia and even Star Wars. Somehow. Anyway, to more news. Well, you know what I say. No news is good news. Nothing on the front of Starfighter that's coming out in 2027. Nothing at all yet, which is unbelievably close to The Mandalorian and Grogu. Nothing. No news. That's coming out this year, May, in fact. Months away. No other news. Wishingly, really, really soon. Anyway, I won't give you any more predictions on that because I'll just wait and see. You know, if you've seen previous episodes of The Force Always, you know what I've said. Anyway, let's get on to views. That was the news. Let's get on to views. Views is my story idea way, so to let you know what I think I'd like to see in Star Wars. I accept the story for what it is. It's a great space adventure. From start to finish, wherever it is, it's that continued, great adventure. Love it or hate it, we all have that sort of feel in Star Wars, anything really. But my story idea is going to be centered in the Attack of the Clones because of Rose Byrne. I think personally in the Attack of the Clones, I reckon if she had more of a role as a story idea, more sort of speaking, it would have added to the story a bit more sort of depth to the character Padme that she was a servant to. And she is a really highly recognized actress here in Australia. Not maybe popular in like, Nicole Kidman or something like that, but she is she's a great actress. I would have used her a little bit more in Attack of the Clones. Nothing overwhelming, a bit more than just a couple of lines. But she has got a sort of, 15 minutes of fame, or not even that, maybe a couple of minutes of fame in a Star Wars film, which, we'd all love to have. Well, anyway, some of us these days, part of us these days. But yeah, I would have just had her have a bit more of a speaking role, not just for her because she's Australian and she's a great actress, but I just think it would have given a bit more sort of depth of understanding to Padme's life, sort of get that sort of feel in the story. So we got the whole idea that she was a senator, she was, the queen, she was a down to earth person, she was a leader, a leadership type person. She really was outspoken, but just give more sort of the, her background, her servants, if you will, just to get more sort of a like even describing what Padme's like in the actual film, coming from Rose Byrne's character would have been great. And even though in the scene that she's in, she expresses a bit of emotional connection to her. Just something else that would have said what she's done, why, and things like that. So it would have been good to see a bit more of Rose Byrne. But anyway, I accept the story for what it is. It is what it is. And that is my views for this time around. Let's get into reviews. Reviews this time around is something also connected to Attack of the Clones, which is, Rose Byrne's big win in life, to be in a Star Wars film, but also now at the Golden Globes, as I've just said, if I had legs, I'd kick you. She's won her role in that. But this here is, I think I think it's the first Blu-ray version of Star Wars. Now, at this stage, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at this stage. So really in this box set, beautiful box set, that shows the a version of the classic poster in a way, if you look at really closely, look, a little bit of a way of the classic. There was a picture of Anakin Skywalker with the shadow of Darth Vader in the background. It's not that one, but it's sort of similar. That's the outside of the box set. Inside, this is it. You've got the nicely laid out, first one, we've got the Phantom Menace with Yoda. We've got Dooku in Attack of the Clones. Why not Rose Byrne? Here we've got, look at this. We've got the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith. We've got, the classic, Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope. We've got Chewbacca in Empire Strikes Back. And yes, Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. And then we've got all these special features with the other characters involved. Such a great, like I said, Blu-ray. And also, this is also the set that we see for the first time Hayden Christensen be the Force Ghost in the episode Return of the Jedi, which is episode 6, Return of the Jedi. He, instead of the other actor that was in the 80s play Anakin's dad as him as Anakin. In the 80s, it was the same actor who played when the mask is unveiled, it was him. But now they've got Hayden Christensen being the Force Ghost, as a decision from George Lucas himself to have him be in that part of this particular, one of the final versions. There's more other versions of this after this. To have Hayden Christensen be Hayden Christensen, be Anakin Skywalker is the Force ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi when Luke looks in the forests, distance of the forest, and sort of reflects. And yeah, so that's I think the first time we get to see that sort of reversion. Anyway, so that's my review for this time around. Let's get into interviews. Interviews is usually the comments that I have with that I get on the YouTube channel. If you're going to send in a comment or question, please put it in my last particular video. So if you're going to put one in today, put it on this one for the next episode. That would be great if you can. And one of our favourites, do I dare to say it? Michael from Werribee South is back on. Werribee South is a part of Melbourne, Australia. It's just it's the other side of Melbourne. For good reason. You'll have to see why if you ever come here. Anyway, so Michael from Werribee South asks, how did the prophecy of Anakin Skywalker, conceived by the Force, challenge Plagueis' scientific understanding? Just to sort of give you a background, Plagueis was the master of the Emperor, or Palpatine, and then Palpatine became the master of Anakin. How did the prophecy of Anakin Skywalker, conceived by the Force, challenge Plagueis' scientific understanding? Well, obviously, Plagueis was a bit more about the science aspect of having life immortal. Apparently, he found it. He found the never-ending way of living life. So it did challenge him because science versus something that was born from almost nothing in that biblical sort of sense. It was sort of inspired from. It was, how can this be? So that's the answer to that question. He was just baffled because how could this be? Anyway, the next question from Michael from Werribee South is really, you're getting into Plagueis at the moment. Plagueis despised lightsaber duels but was a master. How did his focus outsmarting opponents through wealth and manipulation compare to pure combat skill? Because really, wealth and manipulation, more manipulation, is the trickery of the dark side. It's what caused the whole Star Wars. I mean, Palpatine was the absolute master in that. Manipulation was the seed, and it just grew. Wealth, I think, is sort of having the, sort of things to sort of have in one's life. But I think it was more the manipulation, because the psychological aspect of Star Wars, for me, no matter which era, sequel, prequel, originals, is great. I love it. It's just an understanding of psychological understanding of life through the lens of Star Wars. And yeah, so that's the answer to the question. I mean, manipulation, the mastery of the mind was the whole thing with the dark side, and sort of combat skills is definitely part of that, but it's just, it was an extension from the mind. Again, even the combat skills was an extension from the mind. It was about how you would play your play, and that's it. So anyway, the next question from Michael from Werribee South is, why keep a potentially compromised droid that knew his secrets rather than destroy it? Now, the way Michael's asked this question, we've got to somehow maybe assume who he's talking about. Why keep potentially a compromised droid that knew his secrets? We don't know who he is, rather than destroy it. Well, it's a very good question. I think I know who he's talking about, but, a droid knew, like R2-D2 or C3, R2-D2, I'm sure didn't have his data banks wiped. I mean, the whole history of Anakin and Luke is in there. So it's a very interesting point, because it was never sort of portrayed in the actual Star Wars saga. It may have done through comics or books or whatever it is, but it's interesting because it was sort of either in the actual universe of Star Wars, a bit lazy on the characters' behalf to not wipe their memories, or it was just maybe a lazy thing that was forgotten, maybe, in the detail of writing a Star Wars film, maybe. Because Star Wars films are seriously detailed. Pretty straightforward in good versus bad, but there's a lot of detail there. Anyway, let's get into the next question. The next question, Michael from Werribee South, once again, given his we don't know who is, but I'm going to assume or guess, given his mastery over midichlorians and life, could Plagueis, well, he's talking about Plagueis, could Plagueis have saved Anakin from his injuries on Mustafar as Sidious claimed he could? Well, this is something that would be in the Plagueis book, which would be a great read. The whole story of Plagueis is a great story, but we actually don't know of that scenario due to he was not in that position. Could Plagueis have saved Anakin from his injuries on Mustafar, as Sidious claimed he could? Well, Sidious sort of saved him, but it sort of made him to be more machine than man. But could Plagueis have done it, or even better? We don't know. It's one of those things in life, unless you go ahead with something, you have no idea. It's more of a life question than a Star Wars question, but I appreciate the question. It is a good question. Anyway, the next question coming from Michael from Werribee South. Please ask Michael some questions. If you've got a comment or questions, even ask Michael. I could probably answer on his behalf or get a version, or he may reply on the actual YouTube channel. Give that a shot. Anyway, the next question was, he sought to master life and death, potentially making the rule of two obsolete. Did this ambition contribute to his demise, or was it just Sidious's inevitable betrayal? Well, that is another interesting question. He sought to master life and death, potentially making the rule of two obsolete. Did his ambition contribute to his demise, or was it just Sidious's inevitable betrayal? I think, personally, the dark side is really in on its own. The rule of two may be sort of a rule, but the whole idea of being on the dark side is the bad side. I don't think following rules is a big thing for the bad side to do. They'll just override. It's the only way to answer that question. If you're a criminal, or if you're a bad person, or whatever it is, or bad alien, bad droid, you are just there in it really for yourself. In the end, as Sidious Darth Sidious was the Darth name of Emperor Palpatine, just in case you don't know. The dark side is just all about themselves and being the number one. That's why there was just always these, killing of masters and killing of Padwans, and it's all about themselves. That's it. Anyway, so the next question for Michael, where we start: if Plagueis was so powerful, why argue with the crew on the Woebegone or let Sidious kill him in his sleep? Was he overconfident, stressed, or did Sidious find a perfect blind spot? Well, that last point, Sidious found a perfect blind spot. Technically, Darth Plagueis died to the hands of Palpatine, or Darth Sidious, in his other name, because he got drunk, and so Plagueis got drunk, and he sort of started to sleep, and he took advantage. That's what happened. So he took the perfect blind spot. It was a blind spot. Like, Plagueis was vulnerable at that point, so Sidious took advantage. That's the answer. The final question, which I think is a sort of an add-on to something else, was the episode question relate to Darth Plagueis. I think he's backtracking there, Michael. But anyway, Michael, you keep asking those questions. And I must add, if you're going to ask me questions, please maybe use the actual name of who you're talking about. It would be a bit more understandable, but I'll give it a shot using the Force to understand. Anyway, that's the show for this time around. Please like this show if you like it. Share it to other people if you want. Subscribe to the channel. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week. More like 3, but 3 or 4 times a week, giving you the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. And, it's The Force Always. It's on YouTube. Check it out. It's a red and black and white logo on the sort of circle thing, icon. And that's it. If you can subscribe, that would be great. If you don't want to, that's understandable. It's all good. It's up to you. But until next time, my friends, keep rocking.